Even money as Keller. Evans.
Now, hello to everybody. I'm with Patrick Mulcahy here in his home place in Killa, East Cork. Patrick is involved in bookmaking for Seamus and Ray Mulvaney. He has an honours degree in business studies. He loves to do some GAA commentaries and also has a few shows a week for CRY Community Radio. So hello Patrick, how are you?
Hi Sarah, how are we doing?
Good, thank you. Thanks for inviting me down to your lovely home here today.
Yeah, no problem at all. Great to see you down here.
Now, we were at the Point to Point in Killa today, Patrick. It was a great turnout. It's a local Point to Point meeting for you. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so it's my local Point to Point meeting, a race meeting that has been running for 70 or 80 years now at this stage, and things have changed obviously over in that period of time, but I suppose the past 12 months, or the past couple of months really, I suppose things have changed very much because the venue where we had it for the last 35 years has, we've been unfortunately the field has become unavailable, so we've had to trying to find a new home. We failed in doing that for this year anyway, and we moved up to the lands of Ger and Breda Mulcahy up in Boolta, who were gratefully gave us the permission of using their land for the day, and great success indeed, and some great racing as well, and hopefully we'll be able to show you maybe one or two videos of unbelievable Jockey Manship and some race riding. But it was a superb day's racing, and something I'll never forget, being at a Killa Point to Point.
Yeah, there was a great recovery there made by a jockey today. There was an uproar when he got up to win again. What was the Declan Keely, wasn't it?
Declan Queally from Kappa and Dungarvan. Yeah, he's a brother of Tom Quealy's, for your listeners at home who may not know Declan as well. Lovely guy. Declan has been riding very well over the past couple of seasons, and has been taken out, between himself and his dad, has taken out a trainer's licence and a point-to-point handler's licence as well, and they've been going very, very well. And the mare that won today, Ask Heather, has won her last two occasions already, and she won today the Mare's Winners of Two race, and was cruising coming to the last, and just, I suppose, tried to unship, just hit the fence, unshipped Michael Sweeney, young man that lives only over the road from Declan Queally, and did very well to hold on, literally around the neck of the horse on the wrong side of the body, but got all the way back up, and rode hands and heels in the last furlong to get her home. It's one of the rides that will be remembered in memory, definitely, not just because of Killa Point to Point, but in Point to Point racing circles.
Yeah, it was great for me as well. My first time in Cork today, so I got to witness that great recovery. So it was there was a great excitement there today. Now, your main passion, of course, I would have to say, is horse racing. So how did you become so passionate about the horse racing industry?
I suppose there's a small background, I suppose, that Dad and my uncle would have had of interest in horses back in the 90s, that we would have bought, or they would have bought a couple of mares at sales for reasonably handy money, and we would have then produced foals then over time, over the years, and sell them on as foals in November. That's what generally we always do, and luckily enough we've had a graded winner in Ted Veale, of course, who won the county hurdle at Cheltenham, and very sort of graded races on the flat jump, over jumps, or the flat I should say, and I suppose one day I shouldn't really be telling this story, I'm going to say it anyway. I had a second year economics exam in college. It was a mid-semester exam after week, I think it was 6 or 7. The week at Cheltenham was on, and I was sickened because the one day I didn't want to miss out was the Friday at Cheltenham, of course, because you've got the Gold Cup, the Fox Hunters Chase, and a couple of tricky races around it, but obviously they were the main two that I was always interested in. Being of the Gold Cup, of course, one, the blue ribbon event, and then the Fox Hunters, the blue ribbon event for the Point to Pointers. And Ted went in that day. He was after having a good run in Leopardstown prior to that in the old Boyle Sports handicap, now known as the Ladbroke, and was running reasonably well, I suppose, and finished a good third. And going into Cheltenham, I was looking forward to seeing him run. And I had that economics exam at 2:00, and the race was at 2:05. And I just thought to myself, what am I going to do? I can't be late for the exam, but I still want to see the race, because he's one of our first horses that we bred that has become to a big stage, and I just remember watching the race on the betting exchanges at the time, and then the result came through in the Sport and Life as confirmation, and I don't know, the exam, say the race was over 13 or 14 minutes past 2, the result came in at 2:15, and I was nearly in tears at the back of the hall, and the teacher came down and she said, "What are you doing on your phone?" I said, "You won't believe this," but it said our horse that we bred has won one of the big races in Cheltenham, and it's something that I'll never forget. It's probably something I shouldn't be telling you, but it just epitomised, I suppose, the breeding side of it. And I remember coming home that evening back to home, and they were answering phone calls all day and all night, Friday and Saturday. It was just of congratulations. And look, it's something unique, Sarah, because not everyone can breed a winner in Cheltenham, but when you do, it's the emotion attached to it is just something undescribable and quite priceless.
And more importantly, Patrick, did you pass your exam that day?
I did. I didn't have a good exam just because I suppose I probably got turned against it. But yeah, economics was something I actually did like in college, and did reasonably well, I suppose. Both micro and macroeconomics. So yeah, no, it was something. It was something I liked. But it was just on the wrong day, really.
And just to touch on your college, you have an honours degree in business studies. Now I know you work for Seamus and Ray Mulvaney in bookmaking. Do any of the skills that you learned in college, do you use any of them on the racetrack?
I look, I suppose the business degree is something that's developing all the time, Sarah. It's not just where I use it, bookmaking, but also at home. You know, when you're doing, say, if you're doing accounts at home for mum or dad or whoever it is, you know, just trying to use common sense, and maybe down the line the likes of the HRs and the organisational behaviours, the way you learn about people, the way they react to different things, and I've used it on not rare occurrences, on the odd occurrence, alright, over the past couple of years, but I'm sure it'll become more fruition over the next couple of years as the working world is developing so much at such high speeds.
Okay, so what made you want to get into bookmaking?
I suppose before the bookmaking, numbers would have been a high skill of mine. I always would have been very good at maths, and then the accountancy side of things I would have been reasonably good at, and I suppose just by default really, going to a point one day with my dad out in Lismore in Waterford, and Seamus was just after coming back from holidays. I think he was in America for a couple of weeks. He was just after flying back on the Saturday night, and came down Sunday morning. And so usually when Seamus was betting a point to point, he would always bet on the Irish track meeting, whether it be Navan, Fairyhouse, Thurles, Naas, Cork, whatever it be, he would be betting on it. So I went up to him, and I didn't have the paper with me on that certain day, and I said, "Seamus, do you have the Independent or the Times or whatever it was?" And he said he did, and so I got the runners, had a look at the runners, didn't fancy it, and so I said, "Chad, thanks for that." He knew me from being a kid. I was only a teenager at this stage, and moving on then, say half an hour later I came back and just had a look at the prices on his board, and next thing he asked me would I be interested in working with him. I said okay, I would, and so worked with him, just not a hands-on approach, but just more of a shadowing approach, I suppose is what you'd call it, and worked with his clerk Peter, and I think Whacker is a guy from Limerick that brings the gear around for Seamus. We were working that day, and I suppose as they say, the rest is history. But I suppose one side note to that, and not many people know this, but I'm going to tell you anyway. I actually rang the HRI because Seamus said at the end of the day, at the end of that point to point, he said, "I'll see you in Clyne," which was the following week's point to point. I said, right, okay. But I went home, I had no phone number for Seamus, I had no contact, no way in contacting him. And I said to myself then on the Tuesday morning, I said, "She got to Cheltenham, I can't contact him. What time do I need to be there for the first race? What am I supposed to do for next week? Do I need to do anything?" And so I rang the HRI Bet Division, tried to get his number, and I couldn't get his number. But it didn't matter now, I turned up the following week, and I suppose a good pal of mine, Ella Martin, brought me and is still bringing me to races ever since. But that's another story for another day. And I suppose, as they say, the rest is history, and they've been there for over 10 years now at this stage.
And Ray and Seamus, they're great to work for, and they're well represented on the English scene as well. They go to the likes of Chester, the Newmarket, Cheltenham, Aintree and
Yeah.
Ascot. Is there any others?
Yeah, no, that's it's there. It is. I suppose before they used to work York as well, and different places. But Chester, the Royal Ascot meeting, the Newmarket Rowley course. They work at the number 2 and 6 in the Tattersall's Ring, number 1 at Royal Ascot and Aintree, and we work the March meeting in Cheltenham as well. Of course, the Cheltenham Festival, and yeah, it's a joy to work with. We cover 23 of the 26, or 22, sorry, 22 of the 26 courses in the country. We've over 40 or 50 number ones at Point to Points, and we work at Shelbourne Park and at the National Coursing Meeting in Clonmel. And yeah, it is enjoyable because there's no 2 days that are the same, except if you win or lose. That's the only things that you can compare.
And do you take any of the responsibility on it yourself, especially with the likes of today at the Point to Point, for instance? If you're after laying something for a big liability, how do you feel? Do you get quite stressed, or do you just deal with it and on to the next race?
Yeah, you just have to deal with it and get on to the next race. You just have to, whatever plays up in that betting race for that 10-12 minute period, you just have to try and get as much over it as you possibly can. Does happen things that mightn't go your way. They don't go your way one day, it might swing around in a couple of weeks later at another point to point. Yeah, look, you just have to take the good with the bad, and move on with it, and put that race aside. And you've obviously another 3 or 4 or 5 races, whatever it is, whatever stage you are at the card, you've all them to go yet. So there's a long way to go. But yeah, that's how generally I would play it anyway.
Okay, so how would you compare a point-to-point meeting to the likes of a normal industry day race meeting?
I suppose, Sarah, since I got brought up at point to points, not that it's my livelihood, but it's something that country people have unique interest in. And I suppose, as an Irish journalist, Johnny Ward, I know you spoke to him on Saturday at the betting forum. He called down to our point to points 5 years ago in Killa in 2014, and was just, I suppose, amazed at the community spirit of it. And it epitomises how the community get together to run a local race meeting, which is a big deal as well, because it's not done overnight. It takes 3 to 4 months in preparation to organise this thing between sponsors, running the races, organising the races with the Irish Horse Racing Regulatory Board and the Horse Racing Ireland to get the money, and then you have to get your entries and jockeys and get into people in the gate and the day. So like, there's a lot of things to it. But I suppose the atmosphere of Point to Points, because they're a community based, organised, and run thing. There's a lot of people from the community would always support it. You do get the same 40 or 50 guys that go to every point to point in the locality, but being that there's a community side to it, and not all communities are the same, but most communities would sponsor or would help point to points. That does help it a lot. Comparing that to the industry days, I suppose, not that the racing's not good, but I suppose there's a lack of interest in the industry days. I suppose, the atmosphere may not be the same. And I suppose that's the disappointing thing. You would hope that the atmospheric side of it would lift up a small bit, and I suppose it's just no. I suppose as well as point to points and tracks, that both now need to try and regenerate and rejuvenate themselves to try and offering the same product, but probably just in a different format.
Okay, so you touched on the betting forum there. One of the topics that was discussed there yesterday was the betting ring. Some just said that they thought the ring was dead. Ben Keith of Starsports, he's very much so thinks that the ring is still alive with plenty of atmosphere and money about. What are your thoughts? Do you think the ring is dying?
I say for the festival days, so like the upcoming Dublin Racing Festival, the Cheltenham Festival, Aintree, Punchestown, Galway, they're all still alive and kicking. The money might be coming down and going backwards, but there's still money at them, and I wouldn't say it's a dying game in that context. Maybe the industry days are dying because it's probably harder for people to probably get off work, or back in the day they might have pulled a sickie and get away with it, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
But that's probably a harder way in doing it, and people probably with the crash a couple of years ago, the industry crash globally as well, people lost a lot of money and probably are just trying to recover that money at the moment to get back in, maybe into horse racing as well as other sports, but it's particularly horse racing, where a community base, a farmer locally would buy horse for handy money and try and run them at a point to point and sell them on then at a reasonable rate afterwards. And to say that they're both dying is a difficult one, because there's obviously a different atmosphere every day, but the normal industry days probably do need a small bit of perk up, alright, to try and get them back going again.
How would you suggest another young person enters the game?
And
would you suggest young people to get into this game too? Is it something that you would push on young people?
Look, if you've got an interest there, you have to join to try it out. You'll never know. There's no point in knocking it until you try it. It's a great saying, and it's true. I've seen a lot of aspects in racing at this stage, being with both my point-to-point committee, local committee, or working with Seamus and Ray. You're dealing with a lot of the same industry guys that work professionally, day in, day out, whether it be the cameramen, the photographers, the trainers, the jockeys. We're all trying to get the same living out of it. And funny enough, mentioning one guy that was at your betting forum. He wasn't at the betting forum. I met him in a couple of years ago. And I won't mention his name, but he just said one day, he said, we're all the same clown. It's all one circus. We're all the same clowns going from town to town. And he's right. That's what we are. And look, that's the way it is, I suppose.
Okay. So what are your professional ambitions over the next decade? Would you like to still be in the bookmaking game in 10 years?
Yeah, I think the bookmaking game might change a lot in 10 years, unless people's behaviours themselves will change. I would think that maybe in 10 years' time, I would like to be still in the game. But obviously if something arose, that I might take it on the first bite, if I got the opportunity. But I would hope that in 10 years' time that the bookmaking business would be back around again, that it would be thriving in the betting ring, especially because when you go racing, Sarah, the betting ring is the hub of your racing experience, and there's no better place to be. It's like going to the church, but you're not praying, or it's like going to a dance hall, but you don't go for a dance. When you go to the races, if you don't go to the betting ring, to the hive and the highly strung betting ring, I suppose, where people are running around trying to back horses, trying to get the best prices, that's what people can be missing out on, I suppose.
Would it be fair to say one of your ambitions might be that you'd have a pitch in your own name someday?
Probably not, Sarah, I'd say at this stage, to be honest with you. It can be expensive to set up a bookmaking business on course. It's not as if I'm flushed with money either, which I'm not, but that's for another day. It is an expensive game to work in now at the moment, and the way we are at the moment, I think I'm happy enough the way it's going.
Now, I've been to plenty of race meetings with you. I love the way you get so animated on the box. They're at the Holy Ghost is one of your favourite sayings, I think. Did you learn that kind of way from Seamus and Ray, or when you were a young kid, did you watch men like that on the box and you just wanted to be like that? Yeah,
it's the latter, I think, Sarah. I suppose when I started out at 17, 18, 19, you look at all these people and just listen to what they're saying. And as you mentioned, that the Holy Ghost, some people will take that literally, as in you're taking the religion, the Catholic religion, against the wrong way, or whatever religion that you believe in, that you're taking it the wrong way. But it's just another quick saying of that they're at the start, they're at the Holy Ghost, because in Ireland, when the white flag is raised, well, they're just about to start. So that's where the Holy Ghost came from. And the animated thing, I suppose, Sarah, is that I don't want to be standing in at a race beating with my hands in my pockets doing nothing being bored and just walking people walk by. I wanted a bit of vibrancy. I wanted to kind of create a culture that's vibrant, lively, and something going all the time. And that's something I would hope that I do bring to the betting ring. That I suppose that the bookmaking fraternity can just turn that experience for the punter that little bit more better, have a better day out for it. And I suppose that's why I'm so animated. I suppose not that I want to be boasting, but I do want to stand out from the crowd a small bit. I want to be a small bit different. I want to be different to a lot of the other colleagues of mine, and that's the way I read it, really.
And it definitely works because you do have a lot of clients, and you do have anyone I speak to anyway always says the same thing about you, that you're a grafter and you do always try your best. So it is great to see something like that in the betting ring, and hopefully there'll be some young kids going around someday watching you doing what you're doing and want to aspire to be like you someday.
I say there's some kids going around saying, what the name of God is he shutting his head off for?
Where's the Holy Ghost?
Yeah, there's the Holy Ghost. But yeah, look, it's not just, I suppose, the betting ring. I think it's the world as a whole that people need to stand up for each other, and people need to stand up and say we need to work differently, act differently, but you need a leader that can stand out from the crowd a small bit. And I'm not saying I am that leader, but what I am saying is I don't want to be the same bookmaker being queuing up the whole time. I like being small but different, put a bit of creativeness behind it, put a bit of craft behind it, and hopefully, look, for anyone that comes across, I hope I come across that way for people that go racing, whether it be at points or at race meetings.
Yeah, and as they say, be yourself as everyone else is taken.
Absolutely.
That's it. Okay, finally, Patrick, just to touch a little bit on how the horse racing game has changed. So, since you've been in the game as a teenager, how do you find it has changed?
I suppose the online services have really kicked on a lot, and probably hasn't helped the betting ring as such. And obviously that crash back in 2010, 2011 didn't help things either, because people didn't have the disposable cash at the time to be going out doing their extracurricular activities, whether it be hurling or Gaelic football here in Ireland, or playing soccer, or going to rugby matches, out for dates in a restaurant, going to theatre, going racing, whatever it may be. They didn't have that money to go out with it, and I suppose just that's the way it has developed. But now that the disposable cash is slowly creeping back, you can see the people now are just starting to come back slowly, coming to races again. They're going out nights, socially drinking, going out to restaurants with their partners or their families, and you can just see it's now turning back around again. Obviously, people need to be careful of what they're spending their money on, and online services and whatever, but you would hope that in the next maybe 5 years that it will turn all back around again and be very good for the betting ring in years to come.
Excellent. Well, thanks very much, Patrick. It's the end of part 1, and I know for part 2 we're going to talk about your radio station and your GAA commentary. So we're heading to your radio station. So thanks very much for having me in your home today.
Okay, Sarah, and we will catch up then.
Thanks, Patrick.